Gentlemen of the Bigs, it is nut cutting time. We are down to the final week of the regular season. It is Monday, Labor Day, September 2nd, 2019. Week 21 is completed. And just so you guys know, this might be the biggest show of the year. Starting off, as always, with my co-host, Benjamin Aloysius Nisman. How are you, sir?
Joe, good to be back. It sounds like every single week we're saying this is the most exciting week we can remember seeing it in the Bigs, and we just tend to outdo ourselves every single time. Top teams taking care of business, not a lot of spoiling done, but that's just how it works. The hard work is paying off. We are getting into the nitty-gritty, just 1 week left. All these teams climbing, trying to make an impact here and find themselves into the playoffs in 7 days. Joe, I'm just speechless, so take it away.
I am certainly speechless as well with the competitiveness of this league yet again. I do not remember a year where this many teams were clumped this close together this late in the season, to where we've got everywhere from 3 to 8 separated by 11 games. With us right now, actually, is that number 3 team. We're going to kick off the show here with a guy who has not yet been on this show. I promised you that last week. Coming in this week, kicking us off, Jason Herbert Ashby. How are you, sir?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good, buddy. How are you doing?
Great, man. Thanks for coming on the show. And look, this is an exciting moment here. It looks, I don't want to, put the car before the horse, but I will say this is pretty much you cementing your way in somewhere that you've never been. You and I have been doing this together since 2004. So how does it feel right now to be in the position you were in after all this time?
Guys, it's really, really exciting. It's really exciting. Yeah, like you said, it's been a long time coming, and there were some times this season where I wasn't sure. I thought maybe I made a wrong move or two that might burn me, but yeah, it's really kind of been a fight, but here I am still kind of in the thick of it. So it's exciting, definitely exciting.
Yeah, Jason, it's been a real pleasure to watch you maneuver your roster here this year. Before we jump into this particular matchup, you started off this season with an incredibly large trade, and I'd like to get your thoughts on that. It was like 9 players, was it? Refresh me if I'm mistaken here.
Yep. And that was that was definitely an early season move that had the ability to completely backfire or completely work, and I think it's kind of been in the middle. I went into it knowing that I wanted to get Rendon. I wanted that big bat. I wanted that MVP caliber that I knew was going to get me 30, 40 bombs. So I went and got it. And I'm missing Mondesi. I'm missing Devers. Seager has been hit or miss. Corbin has been hit or miss. And basically from that trade, I'm just left with Rendon and Quintana. Mm-hmm. And I had to say, Rendon has pretty much, and you said it week after week, Rendon has pretty much carried my season, so far.
He has been unstoppable some weeks, and more weeks than not, he has been one of your 3 key players. He's certainly part of the reason you're at the top of the standings. When you look at this trade and to refresh everybody's memory, Jason received Miguel Rojas, Anthony Rendon, Trey Turner, Jose Quintana, and Eric Lauer, and he sent away Adalberto Mondesi, Rafael Devers, Corey Seager, and Patrick Corbin. So it was a 5 for 4. And, looking at it now, it's now, 5 months later, almost 5 months later, we're looking at this trade. And you see Rendon, and he's really the key player there. You lost Turner for a period of time and then ended up trading him to my co-host here for Raisel Iglesias. And then, the Eric Lauer addition, I didn't quite understand at the time and didn't really last all that long. I certainly know Miguel Rojas better than many, as he's, he was on my team when he was injured. He's been hitting all season, but not really for any kind of power. Giving up guys like Mondesi, Devers, and Corbin, specifically those three. Though Devers is having a breakout year. Mondesi is up until that injury was also having a breakout year with the speed that you were seeing there. And Corbin has been everything that Washington wanted to add to that rotation behind Strasburg and Scherzer. But when you look at getting Rendon and his 337 average, his 32 homers and 111 RBIs to this point, I don't think it can be understated exactly how underrated and valuable this guy has been for you. He's absolutely carried your team.
He has, and for me, it was I kind of drafted with the intent of picking up guys who were gonna be base stealers, guys who were gonna get triples. So I felt like at that point I could trade from that depth and still survive in steals and triples and those kind of categories, while also picking up a guy like Rendon who's going to give me, the homers and the RBIs and the average and the runs scored. So trading Mondesi was definitely tough, and then even a guy like Devers, I did not see this breakout coming. I knew he was a guy who could hit for average, but I did not see. What's he got, like 28 bombs, 104 RBIs? That I did not see coming.
Right.
So that was a loss, but I made up with it. Made up for it with Rendon, and I can't say I'm not happy.
Yeah, I mean, I would be thrilled if I were you as well. I mean, seeing those two guys specifically go off on Andy's team is kind of surprising when you look at where Andy is in the standings. You have to break down his team a little further to see where the shortcomings are. You talked about drafting from triples and 4 triples and steals, and you lead the league in triples by a substantial margin at this point, and your steals totals are 7 off of the lead. You're in 3rd place currently, one of only 3 teams to have more than 100 steals. So even trading off Mondesi and getting Trey Turner, and then trading off Trey Turner as well, you're sitting at the top of where you wanted to be all along.
And look, trading Turner for Iglesias was kind of probably a questionable move, but look, I turned Iglesias into Polanco, who has been he's been decent for me. He maybe a few too many errors, but he's been decent. He's gotten some good RBIs, some good steals. I think he even got me a triple or 2. So I'm not complaining about that either.
Yeah, no, I agree. And not only that at the time when you had Iglesias, you were creating a bullpen from nothing. And we have to look back that maybe some of those matchups, Iglesias got a save or 2 that either tied or won you a category throughout the run you've been on. So we'd have to take a look at things like that. But I'm going to assume that throughout the time that you had Iglesias, he certainly helped you in some way because of the bullpen that you had. And then, of course, like you said, you flip him for Polanco, another guy that's helped you throughout the way. So in the end, I think all these trades have really worked out for you in some way or another to get you where you are.
Yeah. And, Carlos Martinez, I have to say, was a find that pretty much told me that I could go ahead and trade Iglesias, because once Carlos Martinez came back off the IL for the Cardinals and started closing out games, I saw Iglesias was kind of, he wasn't the shoe-in for saves. I know, they had some other guy, Lorenzen, was picking up some saves for the Reds, so I figured I could trade Iglesias, and I had, I picked up Hector Neris, who's been awesome for me. Kirby Yates is the best closer in baseball, so I could go ahead and trade Iglesias away again and pick up another shortstop. So that'll help me, kind of net out to where I needed to be.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic season for you, Jason. We're all rooting for you, having been in the league as long as you have been without making the playoffs. And you get another really, really solid win here this week over James Santangelo. 13-7 is the final score. Close categories for you this week. You win by 2 doubles, 2 homers, and a steal. James snipes you with a triple, a home run given up by a pitcher, and less than 1/1000th of a point in whip. It's actually .0009 that he got you by whip. You guys tied in walks given up by a pitcher. For the week on your bench, you went 6 for 29. That's a .207 batting average, 5 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, 4 walks, and 7 strikeouts. The 4 walks only plays if you're absolutely perfect. And again, like we say all the time, if you're perfect, you probably end up losing a different stat anyway. So it's not really worth trying to dive into. The only thing I would point at is on Tuesday, Marwin Gonzalez was a 1 for 3 with a homer and an RBI on the bench, and Ryan McMahon gave you all of 4 strikeouts and 2 errors at first base. That's an ugly day to have.
That was bad.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise, as far as your moves are concerned, I do want to ask you what in the hell a Brusdal Greaterall is.
So he is, and this is kind of been my strategy for most of the year is finding these guys that are putting up through the systems of these teams and, lighting the world on fire. And this guy, he's a top prospect for the Twins. And coming into yesterday, coming into Sunday, I knew that I didn't really need starts, but I wanted to shore up my bullpen, and I wanted to make sure that I had enough relief appearances, strikeouts, ERA. And this guy was going to be pitching in the bullpen. So I swept him up, and he gave me a clean inning, or a shutout inning in relief yesterday. They were pitching against the Tigers, so that was kind of a favorable matchup. So I knew if he was going to get into the game, it would be a good showing.
Yeah, I just saw the name and I was like, what kind of disease is that? All right, so he's apparently pitched to a 1.92 ERA across 61 innings in the minors at 3 different levels this season. My understanding is that he does have a triple-digit fastball. He's he might be the closer of the future for the Twins, which, seeing their closer by committee all season is frustrating for any fantasy owner. So to see a guy like this come up and have you grab him, I hate your guts, and I hope you lose.
Thanks.
Otherwise, your roster moves were what they were. There was an interesting ad drop of Josh Phegley for Tucker Barnhart, and then Phegley was dropped a few minutes later for Pedro Severino. Was Phegley not starting that day? Was that an oversight or?
So what happened was there was a rainout in Cincinnati or in St. Louis. I don't remember where they were playing, but there was a rainout, and I had Tucker Barnhart, and I had heard just before that roster spot was going to lock up, that game had been rained out. So I went to drop him for a catcher, but Phegley the game had already started, so I dropped him for Severino, who then went off and I think went 4 for 5 with a bunch of RBIs.
It looks like it was 4 for 6, 2 runs, a double, 3 RBIs, a steal from a catcher that you pick up out of nowhere. Are you fucking kidding me? And it's the steal that wins you the category, asshole. Like, where the hell is all this coming from? Wow. It's those kind of pickups that really matter though at the end of the season. When you get a snag like that, oh shit, I fucked up, and you fuck up better. Like you fuck up the ladder. Rather than, I don't know, a guy who picked up Tucker Barnhart because he was dropped on the 30th and picked him up for Sunday because Mitch Garver wasn't playing, and all he gave him was an 0 for 4. Thanks, Tucker Barnhart. Appreciate that, buddy. Anyway.
I just want to say, I will say, I've been doing fantasy baseball for a long time.
Yeah.
And especially in the bigs. And one thing that I've always said is fantasy baseball is at least 50-50 luck and skill, and if not more towards luck. You could draft the number 1 team. You could draft Trout toward ACL. So you can pick up a guy like Pedro Severino out of nowhere and have him go 4 for 5 with a steal. So there is definitely a good deal of luck involved in fantasy baseball, and that's something that I've kind of been pegging on for most of the season, actually.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can, just like in real baseball, you can stack your team with a bunch of hitters and a good pitcher, a couple of good pitchers that can get you pretty deep in a season, but injuries can always happen, like you a team that the Mets tried to bring in 2002. And we're all excited about bringing back Cedeno and having Alomar now and Jeremy Burnett and
Mo Vaughn.
for Mo Vaughn.
Yeah.
We still had Alfonso and Piazza and Jake Payton only 2 years after an almost Rookie of the Year. I mean, you guys remember what we tried to do, but it doesn't really necessarily matter. A lineup isn't necessarily going to gel. A rotation isn't going to necessarily do what you expect it to do. This year until recently for us, the Mets. So, like you said, you can do everything that you think you're doing right during the draft. You can make up all the pickups to play the matchup. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to fall your way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I've been with, without Contreras, and I just got Scherzer back, but I've been without the game's best pitcher and the game's best catcher for over a month now. So I've just kind of been piecing it all together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a period of time early in the season where you were talking about trading Max Scherzer. I would have loved to get my hands on him, but I'm certainly fortunate enough, and we'll get to it later on about Justin Verlander, but we'll get to that later on. Let's jump to James's team this week, and it's been an interesting season for him. He's sort of been a middling under 500 team, without too many roster moves, too much activity coming from that team. This week, he goes 5 for 19 on his bench. That's a 263 average, 4 runs, a double, a homer, an RBI, 3 walks, and 8 strikeouts. None of that plays. None of it matters. He only makes 2 roster moves of picking up and dropping Donovan Solano, Ji-Man Choi, and Brock Holt, both involved. At the end of the day, it's just another week from James where, again, he goes a few games under 500, is competitive but not winning, and it shows with where he is in the standings. He's in 11th place after 21 weeks. Like, he's right at the bottom half of the consolation bracket, where you would kind of expect a team like this to be, without, where he benches a Michael Pineda win, early on in the week with 8 strikeouts, and he benches Kyle Schwarber with a homer and a double on the bench, while playing Brock Holt at the utility spot, who goes 1 for 5, and Dexter Fowler, who didn't play because the game was rained out in right field. It's things like that you look at with these toward the bottom teams, and you say, you know what, like, it's difficult to get these teams in there when you're just not active like you should be.
Right, and this is Joe, maybe the only argument against Jason, where you say that maybe just lean a little bit towards luck than skill on the 50-50 chart with the bigs, because if we look carefully, I'm pretty sure that James has the least amount of ads in our league, and Jason, you could kind of play according to how your opponent was going to play, and already he's going to make maybe 1 to 2 moves a week. You can play against that. You knew that after the sitting of Michael Pineda, and that to me changed the entire week.
Yeah.
Because maybe Jason decides to start Yarborough against the Houston Astros on, I believe, Tuesday. But according to what he saw against him, he decided the better decision would be to bench Yarborough, and that to me changed everything, because maybe ERA flips, maybe walks and home runs from then on. Maybe Jason decides a completely different strategy after Yarborough blows up if he does start him. So to me, when you know who you're playing against, there is maybe some skill involved, and we're going to see another matchup as well of another team that's pretty inactive against a team that's in the race. That when you know what you're playing against and you know what you're up against, you can kind of strategize accordingly.
Sure, and yeah, definitely. Like, after Monday, I saw that I was up innings from 14 and a third to an inning. So at that point, I kind of knew that I didn't really need to focus too much on my starters, because it looked like I was gonna cruise to innings. So right there, I kind of pivoted from that.
Yeah, it's a credit, and I remember earlier on this week, I think Ben and I were talking about, I think we were doing the show on Tuesday when Jason texted both of us and saying, hey, would you guys play Ryan Yarborough? And I'm like, can I answer you after the game starts? Because
right.
You know, like, you make your decision. I'll tell you what I think of that decision afterwards. And to be honest, you played it absolutely right. I would not have started Ryan Yarbrough there in Houston against that lineup when you're already up innings and wins, and you know what you're up against with James, where he's not going to go for it. He's not going to throw a bunch of streamers against the wall. If it were, you up against, say, me, or James McCloskey likes to stream guys, or, a couple of other managers that are a bit more aggressive on the pitching side, then we would have, then I'm sure you could have that dilemma a bit more difficult in your head. Let's jump to key players this week. Jason, for you, we talked about it before. We'll talk about it again. It's Anthony Rendon again this week. 563 average, 667 on base, 8 runs, 2 doubles, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, 4 walks, and 1 strikeout all week. I mean, it doesn't offset the 16 from Ryan McMahon, but only 1 strikeout all week from your best player. That is amazing. Nick Senzel. A good solid rookie kid in Cincinnati. I had high hopes for this kid as well. He's giving you double-digit homers and double-digit steals, which is incredible. He looks like he's hitting leadoff more times than not in the Cincinnati lineup, with Joey Votto behind him and Eugenio Suarez behind him, and Jesse Winker and the rest of those guys. This is a solid kid to have out in center field. And this week he gives you 227 average. You don't necessarily like that, but a 346 on base, 5 runs, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 steals, which are important, 3 walks and 7 strikeouts. The 2 steals led your team. You add Victor Robles and Pedro Severino to that. There's your winning steals, winning it by 1 over James. And finally, we talked about him as well. Jorge Polanco, a 500 average, a 571 on base, 8 runs, a double, a homer, 3 RBIs, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts, 2 errors you don't like. I think this is the second week in a row you've had more than like 7 or 8 errors. It's a stat that it seems like you're pretty much punting every week now. I think it was Polanco last week had 5. This week Ryan McMahon has 4. The law of averages says that is going to come down, and hopefully it comes down for the playoffs, and you're able to get that stat. But what are you thinking here, and what are you thinking about your lineup and your offense here going forward?
Yeah, definitely. I'm somewhat nervous, but I'm also a little comfortable. I've been tinkering with it all season, but having Rendon obviously gives me a really good leg up, I think, on most of the competition. The errors, they've been a problem all season, and like I said, I've kind of just said, screw it, I'm gonna get errors, and I'll just focus on other categories and try and augment that. It's kind of hard to, you can kind of guy might steal a base or might get a home run. It's kind of hard to know when a guy's gonna hit an error, get an error. So I kind of put that stat to the back burner and focus on all the other stats. Last week Polanco got me a whole bunch of errors, and McMahon. I know Willie Thomas I had a couple of times, and he's been awful at shortstop. But as long as I'm getting the home runs and the RBIs in the field, I feel pretty good.
Yeah, I gotta say, just an unbelievable job this week in general, but on Sunday, it looked like you had some offensive decisions to make, and this was a close matchup as far as some of these offensive categories. You win by 2 doubles, you win by 2 home runs, you win by 4 RBIs, you lost in 3 walks, you got the winning by 1 stolen base, unbelievable. So going into Sunday, you need a big Sunday still, and you get 4 dingers, one from Seager, one from Senzel, one from Rendon, and one from Whit Merrifield. So there was a chance that you could have played Andrew Benintendi or Biggio. They go 0 for 5 on your bench. I thought that was an unbelievable job on Sunday. What was the thought process of who you're going to play and who you were going to bench that day? Because you could have very easily played it wrong, but you played it so well. So what was your mentality going into that day?
Yeah, benching Benintendi is ballsy.
Benintendi, he's been a real disappointment, to say the least. So I finally decided to just bench him, and if he gets hot, then he gets hot on my bench. But I took a chance in thinking that he was going to stay cold, and I went with Campbell, who he's also been kind of struggling. But I wanted the steals. I saw he was playing a doubleheader, so it was a chance for a good day from him. So that was kind of my thought process there.
Yeah, it certainly paid off. Like Ben said, Sunday was a huge day for you. 4 homers, 9 RBIs, 9 runs scored. You win RBIs and homers by relatively close fashion. And to see,
and the stolen base too.
The stolen base,
grabbed
yeah.
that on Sunday, even if it was from on 0 for 3 from Robles, he could have benched him for Biggio or Benintendi as well.
Yep. The thing is, James's team really didn't come to play on Sunday. He only hit 152. A homer, 5 RBIs, a double, and 2 runs, 10 strikeouts. To see that kind of poor production, it's got to get you excited when you see your opponent. For me, if it's early on a Sunday and I see him going 1 for 10, 1 for 11, 1 for 12 early in the day, I'm getting excited because there's something I can flip. There's something that's getting flipped today if my team comes to play. For your pitching this week, Jason, you had. And we talked about it earlier on that you've built this bullpen basically from scratch. Aside from the guy that you drafted in the 7th round in Kirby Yates, who's been the best closer in baseball this year. He gives you another 3 relief appearances, 2 2/3. Does take a loss, but 2 saves, 7 strikeouts, and a walk. Nothing earned, and a 1.13 WHIP. This guy has been lights out for you all season and is certainly helping you toward the playoffs this year. You added in Mark Melancon right around the trade deadline when you saw him get traded to the Braves. Ballsy move because everybody, myself included, thought it was going to be Shane Green. But it ends up being Melancon now. 2 relief appearances, an inning and a third, 2 saves, all clean, 2 strikeouts. Doesn't even have a whip because he didn't give up a walk or a hit. And finally, we'll jump on you, Darvish, for a minute. 8 innings, a win, 7 strikeouts, a 1.13 WHIP, a 1.13 ERA, an 0.75 WHIP. A homer and a walk is all that hurts him. This is a guy I drafted in the 10th round, and early on in the season, he was really, really struggling. Tell me what it's like to have patience with a guy like Darvish, and tell us about this bullpen that you put together.
So Darvish was, he's made me lose a couple of hairs and gain a couple of wrinkles because he's been a headache. For basically the first half of the season was really stressful with him. But I knew he was too good to drop, but he was too bad to trade. So I was left with sticking with him and hoping that he finds it. And the second half, he really has. It was tough to see that great matchup come against our Mets, but I'll take it. And as far as the bullpen, that's also been kind of something that I've been, kind of taking guys in, taking guys out. But yeah, Kirby Yates has been dynamite for me. I was expecting the Padres to be better than they are, so I was expecting more save chances, even more save chances. And I'm very happy with what I've gotten so far from him, but I wasn't expecting him to be right up there with the Dodgers. So that was my thinking in taking Yates. And Melancon, as soon as the Braves acquired him and Shane Green, I think they first gave Green the closer job, and he bombed. Mm-hmm. So they immediately turned the keys over to Melancon, and since that happened, he's had experience closing before. He's been an all-star closer. So I'll take that. I'll trade it for Will Harris, who's been, he's been decent. He's had a couple of blow-ups, but for the most part, he's been pretty good. Mm-hmm. And then again, the trade for Hector Neris has really paid off for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And no question, it's paid off in so many ways because you look at what you've done throughout the season against your opponents. You match up tied wins with Joe, 14-3 and 4 in that category as far as when, most of that's been starting pitching. But right at lead our league, and that's so critical. It just shows how strong and how consistent your pitching has been all season. I mean, you got a 3.93 ERA overall the whole season, and you have to remember there are probably some weeks where you're just deciding to go for it and just throw some innings just to get some strikeouts, just to get to win innings pitched, maybe get a win here and there. So what do you think has been the main reason that your pitching has been so strong and so consistent? Because it's obviously been a big reason why you are where you are right now.
Max Scherzer.
Good answer. Good answer.
he's definitely, there was something on my shoulder that said, do not trade this guy, do not trade this guy. And I did not trade this guy, and he has definitely anchored this rotation. And losing him for a good month was tough. But what he has given me, has really, I think, saved my season. And then I go back to luck. Look, last week I picked up Dylan Bundy. I've sworn off Orioles pitchers because the Orioles are terrible. But I took a chance on Dylan Bundy, and he gave me 7 strong innings. So it's things like that have really kind of, just kind of kept my season afloat and kept me in the middle of everything.
Yeah, you've had an unbelievable season. You add in, streams like Homer Bailey this week, and to a lesser extent Jason Vargas, he didn't do great, but he wasn't, he didn't shit the bed. So, you get a couple of starts like that. I know full well what it's like to stare down a day and go, I don't like anybody who's starting today. And, maybe you don't go that day, but more times than not, if you can get a decent start like what you got out of Homer Bailey or something like what you got out of Vargas, the start out of Quintana and Steven Matz were great this week. You get those kind of starts 4 or 5 times a week, you're gonna more times than not get yourself right in where you want to be with your ERA. High 3s or the low 4s, which is as competitive as you can ask for. But at the same time, you're totally dominating in innings and more than likely dominating in wins. That being said,
you know what? I also am wondering here because WHIP, I mean, it doesn't get as close as it got this week in WHIP for you. So is there a frustration? I said 16-5 in WHIP against opponents. That leads our league, but this is a loss for you amongst that 5 losses. So is there a frustration that there was some kind of move here or there throughout the week that could have lowered the WHIP just a little bit if you did this instead of that?
I mean, look, Darvish was supposed to start yesterday, and he got scratched. I wasn't sold if I was going to start him or not. If he was going to play against the Brewers, had he played, maybe that lowers the WHIP. Depending on how he does. I streamed the guy from the Royals, Chicago.
Yeah, I was going to bring him up.
Yeah, I think he's playing against the crappy Orioles, so maybe that's a streak that didn't work out. So, yeah, I think there's always look back and say, I shouldn't have done this or I should have done that. But at the end of the day, you got to go forward and get ready for the next day or the next week. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
Yeah, I've always figured that's just the mentality that you have to take. It's just you can't do anything about it now. You just turn the page, try to forget about it, and play on to the next day. And I think it's easier said than done, but it's just the way it has to be done.
Jason, Eric Scoglin's next start is in Miami. Just saying.
He's all yours.
I appreciate that. I will certainly. I might do that. I might do that. Jumping over to James's team here, we're going to highlight Marcus Semien. 265 average, 286 on base this week, 5 runs, a triple, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, a walk, and 7 strikeouts. The triple is the only one of the week. It does beat you this week, Jason. It must sting a bit. But as the guy, again, who leads the league in triples and leads the league as far as the record in triples is concerned, I'm sure that you'll take this one and just sort of shrug your shoulders and move on. Christian Yelich gave him a good week as well. 300 average, 462 on base percentage, 4 runs, a double, a homer, 3 RBIs, a steal, 6 walks, and 5 strikeouts. And finally, Brandon Belt gave him a good week as well. 389 average, 421 on base, 5 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, a steal, a walk, and 3 strikeouts. I highlight those guys. James did win walks, kept his strikeout totals down, and was competitive in homers and stolen bases. Pitching wise for him, Trevor May gave him 3 clean innings and 3 relief appearances. Gave him 8 strikeouts. He faced 9 batters and struck out 8 of them. That's incredible. An 0.67 whip. Nothing else happened. I just thought that was a really, really solid line. It's like I talked about before with guys like Josh Hader and other relievers like that. If you can get 3 or 4 innings out of these guys and a high strikeout total, it's basically another start.
No doubt. Not only that, but he doesn't win without May. It's obvious that it was just 3 perfect innings, just lowering that whip just enough for actually him to win this category over Jason.
Yeah. Joey Lucchesi gave him a good start as well. 6 innings, a homer, a walk, 3 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, and the same whip. Got a no decision, unfortunately. This start came in San Francisco, so you got a huge ballpark and a not great lineup. It's just all the makings for a really solid start. And finally, I'm going to highlight Nate Eovaldi, who, again, was solid enough. 8 strikeouts over 4 innings, a homer, a walk, 2.25 ERA, a 1 whip, a no decision. Again, getting that whip down and keeping those homer totals down. He won homers by 1. So to see, a guy like Luis Cessa who gives him 4 innings and an 0.75 whip with nothing going on as far as counting stats, it's those kind of guys that are going to keep that whip just barely underneath Jason this week and keeping him from getting one more category. This could have very easily been 14-6. James gets a walk somewhere toward the end, 14-5. We're looking at a bigger blowout than this was. Jason, how are you feeling going toward the playoffs here? You're sitting in the 3 spot with 5 teams behind you by, what is it, 9 games? So it's 9 games back to, it's 11 games back to 8th place from you. You have 1 week left here. You're going to be facing off against Ari Nisman. What are you thinking? How are you? Where would you like to be after this week?
Well, I've never really experienced the phenomenon of having a bullseye on your back, but I feel like I have a bullseye on my back. I feel like there's a whole army of league managers trying to get to where I am. And honestly, I would love to be in the top 2. I'd love to have that first bye, but I'd be content in just being in the playoffs. Like you said, it's been a long time coming. So I'm excited to just be in the thick of it. And I'm going to take this week, more or less the way that I have been. It's worked, and I might be a little more, tinkering with it, but I'm happy with my team for the most part, and I'm prepared to kind of just, add a drop here, but really kind of just do what I've been doing all season long.
Yeah, I agree, and you can't change the strategy now. It's gotten where you are, and I myself am certainly sweating because that number 2 spot is well within reach for you. All it requires basically is a win from you and a loss from me. You got it. And we both have spoiler-type teams. I myself have our buddy Andy, and I know that he's not going to be just a layup. He's going to do what he's got to do to take me on. So I wish you the best of luck, Jason. I got it for myself. Root for a loss against you. In my heart of hearts, I want you to win. I want you to succeed. But I've worked so damn hard, and I want this bye so badly. So I'm torn here, but I'm proud of you, and I'm really impressed with everything you've done. So keep it going, buddy. We'll see what happens.
Thank you, buddy. And yeah, I appreciate the work. And yeah, it's gonna be, it's been a dogfight all year long, and why not one more week of dogfight?
It's been a hell of a season for you, Jason. We look forward to seeing what kind of damage you can do in the playoffs here, should you make it. And it looks pretty favorable for you to do so. It's going to take one hell of an ass whooping from Ari to keep you out, along with some help along the way from the other managers below you. With that, I think we're going to kick it over to the next matchup here. Thanks to Jason Ashby so much for being on the show today. Fantastic stuff from him. Love hearing from all of you guys. And again, we're coming down to the last few weeks. The playoffs are about to begin. I'd love to have, somebody who hasn't been on the show that's in the playoff hunt on the show. I don't actually think there's anybody. Maybe Mike Sherman is about the only one that hasn't made it on, Benji. Anybody that you haven't that you would look forward to having on the show?
Just about anybody that we haven't heard from. It's
Right.
just great to hear a new voice, that we haven't gotten to, and just get another perspective, their other view on how they play this game, that we've been doing for so long. Obviously, 15th year that it's been called the Bigs, 17th year overall, and just, we always see something different every single year. And this platform, this podcast that you created has just made it, added even more validity to something that didn't even need it. We added the trophy after the 2016 season. We've done all this to just create more and more validity to what we're doing, and I think it's truly special. And I'm glad that Jason had a chance to come on, and hopefully we get even more, because it seems like the passion is only growing.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. I'm so pleased with how this podcast is coming together and how much it's grown and how much appreciation you guys have for it. Jason said off air that a lot of what he does is, predicated on how Ben and I will break it down at the end of the week. So I love hearing things like that. I love hearing the appreciation from you guys. So thank you so much for listening. So thank you so much for watching all this.
Doesn't hearing a comment like that just make all the work and research that you do even more worth it for you, Joe?
Absolutely.
Good. I hope so, man, because you do. It gets put onto the radar, man. But I will say, man, that not only was it a great idea for you to start this, but all the hard work and the research that you do week to week, man, it pays off. I hope, like for me, it means so much, and I appreciate it, because this is a league that I founded. It's something that I created, and then you've taken such a loving to it that you've made it your own. You've done more with it. So all that hard work and all that effort that you put in, it's greatly appreciated by me, the league, and I really hope it means so much to you as well.
It means the world to me. I worked so hard for this league. I couldn't see myself playing another league anywhere. This is the only fantasy baseball league I take seriously. I don't play anywhere for money. In fact, I play a lot of Yahoo Public Leagues just for the reason of having access and knowledge of other players around Major League Baseball for this. So it's a case of everything I do as far as baseball is concerned is predicated on this league. This is a really big prideful thing for me. Benny, let's talk about your matchup this week with Uncle Barry. You got yourself another solid win, 11-8 this week. Close categories this week. You win by 2 triples, a steal, 2 ticks on the batting average, and 2 home runs given up by a pitcher. For Uncle Barry, he wins by an error and 8 ticks on the on-base percentage. So much like earlier in this season where you guys faced each other and the pitching stats were so incredibly close, this week it's much more the hitting stats that are so close, the average and the on-base percentage specifically. You guys also tied in wins and losses, which is what it is. For your bench this week, 7 for 43. It's a 163 batting average. 2 runs, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 2 walks, 13 strikeouts, and an error. None of that plays as it's either not enough to flip a category or tie a category, or you won it outright. Your moves this week, and I think Uncle Barry is kicking himself for this one. It was the first one of the week for you. You picked up Miles Mikolas, who gave you an unbelievable start. 6 innings, 10 strikeouts, 1 earned, and the win, an 0.67 whip. That win is what ends up tying the category with Uncle Barry, and I'm sure somewhere he's kicking himself for it.
Maybe, because that's how the week started.
Mm-hmm.
I used my waiver spot on the guy, and he put me in the right spot, in the right direction, and all of a sudden, my ERA and my whip, I got the win there, and everything was strong going forward. I knew that, I could count on my bullpen for the most part to get a good amount of innings with a low ERA. That's what they did day to day. There were a couple of days where I didn't even have to start starters, and my relievers just did the rest. So, yeah, this is a perfect example of a guy drops the pitcher, and his opponent picks up that pitcher and plays him against the guy that dropped him,
mm-hmm.
and it works out. Typically, that is what happens. The guy comes back to bite you. Don't necessarily expect it against the spoiler team, but, Joe, I realize I only won by 3 here in 11-8, but this is one of the most meaningful wins of my season because I'm playing against one of the best managers. Say what you will about Uncle Barry in the standings. This is one of the best freaking managers we have. He works his ass off every single day to compete, and I had to do basically everything against his offensive players. I mean, they were basically a machine. And every stat that I seemed to go for, like on Friday, I had something like 4 leadoff hitters. I'm grabbing those runs, but he just gets 4 out of Marte. I'm like, come on, 4 runs from one guy, get out of here. And it just seemed like all of his hitters were just mashing, and no matter and there was a day where I think it was Wednesday, because I think it was right after you and I did the podcast, where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna bench Mancini against Max Scherzer. That makes sense. And let me bench Jason Kipnis, and Jason Kipnis pops 2 home runs on my bench. He also gets an error, and throughout the week I'm like, that error is still moving though. I don't think I'm gonna beat Uncle Barry in home runs or tie with him anyway with these 2 home runs. The error that I left on the bench was more important. I was still happy about it until I end up losing in errors by 1 anyway. So nothing really mattered. The Mancini miss against Scherzer, that didn't matter either, even though Mancini had a good game against Scherzer. On Sunday, I'm trying to get cute, man. I'm trying to get too cute on 2 days. Friday, Jason Hayward isn't starting, but I leave him in my lineup, Joe. Because at the time, it's Friday. I think I'm only up by 5 or 6 strikeouts as a batter. And I know my team strikes out a lot. So I was like, let me play with a short lineup. I'm going to overmanage the crap out of myself. One hitter goes 0 for on my bench. I believe it was Kipnis that goes 0 for 4. And then Kipnis starts, Kipnis goes 0 for 4. And then Nunez, he starts really cold. I'm like, wow, I'm looking kind of smart here. He ends up going 2 for 6. I needed those hits. I end up picking up a first baseman because Votto's game gets canceled. That lowers the head. The bottom line that I'm going with, man, is that everything I did through Sunday, whether it's Miguel Cabrera that I didn't need to use the ad because Nunez was playing, Nunez went 0 for on my bench. I could have just played him and saved the move. That would have lost me batting average. I still end up going at 5 o'clock and getting Brian McCann to play catcher because I need a catcher. He ends up going over and lowers my average, all until the night game and this second game of the doubleheader where Paul Goldschmidt was dog duty and Corey Dickerson had a multi-hit game, and all this led to me just winning batting average. That stat flipped. It's one of those swing categories with on-base percentage, ERA, and WHIP where you don't really tie. There's either a winner or a loser, and that one flips right at the freaking end. The last at bat is all that mattered. And I gotta say, man, out of all the things that I can nitpick, you said it best. All those stats I left on the bench, it never really mattered. This is one of my best managing weeks against an incredible opponent, against an incredible manager. And I realized that a lot of players that I needed to get spoiled didn't get spoiled. They had more damage, but I still had to come out with a win somehow. So I'm just relieved right now as I talk to you at this moment.
Yeah. Uncle Barry had himself an interesting week on his bench as well. He went 11 for 46. That's a 240 batting average, 5 runs, a homer, 3 RBIs, 3 walks, and 9 strikeouts. None of that plays either. So you guys managed it perfectly for each other, like against each other. Barry took a lot of the offensive stats, the counting stats specifically, But, in doing that, he loses strikeouts and he loses batting average by 2 points, like you just talked about. He went for it in a lot of cases with pitching, where he picked up Eric Lauer late in the week. He streamed Aaron Brooks and Colby Allard and Stephen Brault and Brock Burke. That gives him all the innings, ties up the wins, but it inflates his ERA and his WHIP, and it hurts him in the long run. Otherwise,
and the home runs given up. There must have been a couple of home runs. That's all that mattered. I think I won that category by 2.
Sure. Let me take a look at it. I'm looking at Sunday specifically, but yeah, I mean those guys.
We got to talk. We do have to talk about Sunday because there was a lot of strategy. That was where a ton of him and I were playing chess on the pitching specifically.
Yeah, Eric Lauer himself gave up 2 homers, and that's the difference right there. But he did win the game, so take that for what it is. You want to talk about Sunday specifically? Go ahead and holler at me.
I could, we could say that I could have sat all of my guys as far as relievers and just let him possibly grab strikeouts. But I did want to possibly get some strikeouts in there, throw it in, and maybe at least seal it because he had all these starting pitchers going, and I didn't know what he was going to do with it because he had a nighttime pitcher. So I didn't necessarily, right? I think he had Eflin. So I myself had to say, hey, maybe I get a win from my relievers. Lorenzen ends up getting me a loss. That's costly. I guess if you want to look at that, that's one thing I could have done was maybe bench a couple of relievers. But again, I just didn't know if all of a sudden a bunch of his guys would strike out a ton. All of a sudden I end up tying or losing strikeouts. I would have wished that I could have at least played this or that reliever.
Yeah, he ended up not playing Eflin, which would have wouldn't have made
to avoid the loss.
Yeah.
It made sense.
Yeah, and as it turns out, Eflin gets a no decision there. But at the end of the day, if he plays him instead of, say, Eric Lauer, it's a completely different matchup. He might not.
But he was never going to do that. He needed to start seeing if he could chew at to get a win. He was going for it early. It was either he was going to do it early and later, or he was going to do it earlier. It was going to be one of the other way.
Yeah, it looks like Eflin was a purposeful bench that late. He doesn't want to go after the loss at that point. On his bench, he only had 2 really misplays. Harold Ramirez on what looks like Friday, 3 for 5 with a homer, 3 runs, and an RBI on the bench. Ryan Braun's playing in left field, but Paul Goldschmidt's game gets postponed at first base. You could have moved Braun over and Harold in. That doesn't appear to be,
Again, who knows how that changes his mentality for Saturday and Sunday.
Sure.
And how he plays his offense.
Sure. Andrelton Simmons on Saturday, 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run. Galvis 0 for 4 at the utility spot. Again, it doesn't change anything as far as counting stats is concerned, but when batting average is 2 ticks off, those are the moves that you look at and go, ow, that one stings.
Sure.
Yeah.
Again, I have no idea how he would have strategized accordingly on Saturday and Sunday if he does that, but maybe the same guys get played and he ends up winning batting average. I guess we'll never know.
Yeah. Key players this week. Benji, for you, Kevin Newman again. We talked about him last week. 464 average, 483 on base, 7 runs, a double, a triple, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, and only 1 strikeout all week. I hit on it with Anthony Rendon, with Jason. To only get 1 strikeout from a guy who plays all week and puts up this kind of stat line is absolutely enormous. The 7 runs doesn't win you that category, but the triple is what's huge because you win that one 2-0. Victor Reyes, a pickup midweek, I believe.
I think that was a Friday pickup.
Yeah.
He played 3 days for me, I'm pretty sure.
444 average and on base, 3 runs, a double, 2 RBIs, 2 steals is the big thing there because you win it 3-2 there, and only 3 strikeouts from that guy. And Corey Dickerson, you talked about him a little bit ago. Huge week from him as well. 400 average, 444 on base, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 2 walks, and only 5 strikeouts over the week. You did not have a player get more than 6 strikeouts on the week. That was Carlos Santana, who, we've talked about him at length before about how good he has been for you. To see that kind of production and that low a strikeout total, 43 on a week, that's a pretty good number, man.
Yeah, and if the most is from Carlos Santana, I think I got to give him a pass. He's been my best player all year. The 2 errors that he had, that flips that category from winning to losing. So that's frustrating. But he's won me more than a couple of categories throughout this season. So and he still batted .333. So he did just enough that I needed for me to win that stat. So again, you talked about Victor Reyes. Who is this guy? He's just a leadoff hitter on the Tigers that I can't drop now because
he's hot.
A leadoff hitter, especially when a leadoff hitter is hot. And this guy has 4 or 5 stolen bases on the season. He grabs 2 for me on the weekend. So that goes from losing a stat to winning a stat. Just stunned on what he did on Saturday and Sunday. So thank goodness that I went for this guy. I could have very easily picked somebody else, but a good gut feeling about a hitter on the weekend, I believe against the Minnesota Twins, and that was definitely the difference.
Absolutely. Your pitchers this week were fantastic as well. We talked about Miles Mikolas earlier. I'd like to give his full line: 12 innings, 2 starts, a win, 1 home run, 15 strikeouts, a 3 ERA, and 0.67 WHIP. This guy was a 4th round pick this year by Uncle Barry, and he finally let him go. He hasn't had the season that he had last year. A 4.32 ERA, 124 strikeouts. 15 of those coming this week for you. He was an interesting cat coming into the season because you thought he was going to be pitching to that low 3 or maybe even high 2 ERA he had last year. That hasn't been the case here. But if he's going to turn it around and pitch well this, the next month for you, this could be a league-winning pickup for you, Benji.
Well, I wouldn't go. Let's not go there yet. But what I will say is that what I have here is a guy that was highly drafted, like you said, highly touted, plays on a good team, plays on a National League team that is going to pitch to a pitcher, not a DH most of the time. And most of all, this guy is coming through a stretch where he's going to possibly pitch pretty darn well. And the most important thing that I noticed through these 2 starts, not one walk. This guy's pitching to contact. Mm-hmm. And if you have a guy that has control, it gives you a good chance to get some outs. So, 15 strikeouts, but he also got some outs on the ground and in the air as well. So, very grateful for having a high waiver pick. And I think using it at the exact right time. There's those times, I said it before, where you're kind of hesitant, apprehensive about making that pickup and using that waiver spot and dropping you down to 16 because you never know, especially when you know you're going to the playoffs, that waiver spot could be humongous if it's higher than your opponent or somebody else that's in the playoffs. But I guess I used it at the right time. Needed a new rotation guy after David Price went down, and he 100% helped win me this week. So thank goodness.
Yeah, and that's why I say this might be a league winner. This is the type of guy you can plug in at the top of your rotation right alongside Tanaka and Foltynewicz, and the guys that you were sort of throwing in and out of that lineup. This guy could anchor that short starting rotation staff that you have. Going to your bullpen here this week, Ian Kennedy has been a lifesaver for you this year. 4 relief appearances, 4 innings, 3 saves, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, and 0.75 WHIP. That's another solid start, and he kicks you 3 saves to boot. Guy has been lights out, and having the starting pitching eligibility from that guy is a huge deal as well.
Yeah, it's been so easy to move him around, because there are certain days where, I put him in the RP, and then I have extra starters going in the rotation. So his flexibility, his find, he drafting Boxberger, who I thought was going to be Kansas City's closer. Turns out he was never getting to the games because Kansas City was either getting blown out, somehow blowing it, but at the end of the day, not really being in save situations for their team. So Boxberger, I finally cut ties. We talked about it when it happened. Somehow grabbed Ian Kennedy in the middle of a game in the 9th inning, where I said, you know what, maybe if he does pull it off here, and
he's the guy.
Leave him in to be the guy. That's what happened. Ian Kennedy is the closer on the Kansas City Royals, and my God, with him, it would have made it so much easier to let go of Iglesias. And now Lugo is sometimes a closer, Joe. It turns out Soria got me a save. So there's there's a chance. There's just a chance that my bullpen and maybe Mikolas and another starting pitcher, that's enough pitching to win a playoff week.
Yeah. Yeah, going back to the eligibility thing, Michael Lorenzen has been great for you as well. 4 relief appearances, 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, a 1 WHIP. He does get you the 1 loss on the week, which is disappointing to see. But to see 7 strikeouts and 6 innings from a reliever, again, I talk about it all the time. If you can get that high a strikeout total and that many innings out of a reliever, that's just another start. Like that you don't have to go out and stream a guy.
1.50, that's definitely a start.
Yeah, it's as good as you can possibly ask for. He doesn't give up any homers, 1 walk, 7 big strikeouts. It's a great week from him. We'll jump over to Uncle Barry's team. Starling Marte, you talked about him just a second ago. He had a huge week, 400 average, 486 on base, 8 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, and an error. He won most of the offensive categories: runs, doubles, homers, RBIs. This guy is most certainly a reason why. Alongside Xander Bogaerts, who seems to wear out Barry's opponents week after week after week. 435 average, 480 on base this week, 6 runs, 4 doubles, 4 homers, 7 RBIs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. You put those two alongside Yadier Molina, who 2 weeks ago was Ben's worst player of the week. He comes back this week with a vengeance. 579, 636 on base percentage, 7 runs, 3 doubles, 4 homers, 8 RBIs, 2 walks, 0 strikeouts. Did not strike out this week. Amazing stuff from him. And I don't think that Barry's problems this season and the reason that he's down toward the bottom of or at the bottom of the standings have been offensively related. I think it's a lot more on the pitching side. He's got a strong offense with Goldschmidt and Molina and Bogaerts and Gurriel in the outfield, with Marte and Braun and a couple of other pieces that he's moved in and out. It's never been an offensive issue with Uncle Barry. It has definitely been on the pitching side.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, it's just it's been a tough year for him, but he's managed himself into some W's this year.
Mm-hmm.
Dangerous opponent for Bobby. We'll get into Bobby's matchup later as he tries to pull off a miracle. But again, Uncle Barry, to me, day to day, playing by the matchups, playing by the score, one of the best we've ever had. So, I made sure I sent him a text last night and said, "You're one of the best," and just incredible competition. And that's all there is to it, man. I couldn't feel luckier getting out of Sunday, because now I'm looking at Monday, man. I had Miguel Cabrera in my lineup initially and found out he's 1 for 10 against Jake Odorizzi, so I benched Miguel Cabrera. What does he do his first at-bat on my bench?
Homers?
Yep. He got a home run on my bench just, less than 30 minutes ago. Probably.
Wow.
So, frustrated already, and just got to turn the page, right, like we said. But, again, getting back to my uncle, scary manager, and the pitching has been so rough. I know he's one of these guys that thought 37 was a few too many innings this year. I know you and I stand in a different direction as far as that goes, because we don't want to reach a minimum by Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever, and get to sit and chill. That's kind of brutal. And I think that if you're afraid of some of your starters and some of these guys that are in free agency, just wait until that day where you see a matchup that you like and get your innings, get your 37 somehow. But I understand that there's some times where you want some of your guys to be pitching 2 times a week and they don't. So if you only have maybe 3 guys that are going once a week, then you have to make some decisions. But that's why you have the ads. That's why you have 13 ads. Like, that's what you're supposed to use them for. So maybe just throughout the season, Uncle Barry was not streaming pitchers carefully, or not enough, or whatever it is. But that's definitely been the issue.
Yeah. Just a quick real-time score update. Mets up 2-0 in Washington.
Thank you, because there's no way that I could watch this game and do this at the same time. It's just my focus has to be on this right now. So let them do what they have to do. They seem to be doing well when I don't watch them lately, because I've had a pretty busy weekend. But Thanks for the update.
Yeah, no sweat. 2-0. Double from Joe Panic and then a single from Rene Rivera brings home your favorite Met, Brandon Nimmo.
All right. Oh, he was picked up today by Chris Levy. I don't know if he played him or not, but that's a guy that he's going to get the at bats now. So
yeah.
Hopefully.
Nimmo is in fact.
He's got something to prove.
Yeah, Nimmo is in fact in his utility spot. Fills out his roster. Does not have an at bat, a walk, and a run scored today. We'll jump to Barry's pitchers here. We'll highlight Adam Plutko. 2 starts, 10 innings, a win and a loss, a homer, 6 walks, 11 strikeouts, a 4.50 ERA, a 1.50 WHIP. At the end of the day, I'm only highlighting the guys who pitched the most innings on his team because that's the only stat that Uncle Barry won this week pitching wise. So it's him. It's Brock Burks, 6 innings, 2 strikeouts, a walk, 3 ERA, a 1.33 WHIP, and Eric Lauers, 6 innings, a win, 2 homers, 9 strikeouts, 6 ERA, and a 1 WHIP. Uncle Barry was a compiler rather than any kind of performance this week, only getting that one stat. If he could have somehow pulled out another win or not taken the loss from Adam Plutko. Plutko's loss came in Tampa on Sunday, so it stings that he takes it that late in the week. The 4 1/3 he got wouldn't have mattered, so maybe you should have thought twice about starting him there. But then again, I don't know if you were starting anybody on Sunday either. No, we talked about the fact that you were going to dump out.
On Sunday.
Oh, you started Mikolas.
It was a tough call, huh?
Yeah, you were starting Mikolas.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy decision, but I didn't know about the strikeouts thing.
Yeah.
I always think that when a guy's got 4 potential starters going, not only the nighttime pitcher, so he had that advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I had to say, let me just go for this guy. Hopefully the St. Louis Cardinals don't lose or he doesn't get the loss. They
Right.
end up losing. He gets the no decision. So I just basically luck out, and it didn't matter. I didn't need the start. I didn't need the strikeouts.
Right.
Could have benched all my pitchers on Sunday and avoided the loss from Lorenzen.
Mm-hmm.
But I just didn't know. So I guess if you can pinpoint one thing that I did wrong, maybe just benching all my pitchers on Sunday. But then who knows what Uncle Barry does? Maybe
Right.
he goes and gets another starting pitcher, like a 5th one or a 6th one.
Right.
I don't know who's available because I wasn't really paying attention. I knew I didn't really need it. I knew I didn't want to risk another loss.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to go with Mikolas and the bullpen, and I get the 1 loss from Lorenzen as a bullpen, and that ends up being the difference. But I think I played it just about as well as I could.
Yep. Benji, you're going to finish up this season facing off with Andy, and we talked about it with Jason. It looks like you just need to hold strong here, get 8, maybe 8 wins does it for you. 8 categories.
I don't know. I really don't know the math. I mean, I have a bigger lead on 3rd place than even number 6 spot has on Bobby in 8th place, which is a 4-game lead.
Yep.
So I actually feel like, as you call it, healthier than even the number 6 spot with what's chasing him. So I guess I should feel good about it. I don't exactly know how the math works on how many more wins and how many more losses, how many more ties, how much better I need to do than James McCloskey, than a Jason Ashby, than a Joe Schubert in order to keep me in this bye spot. But my God, I just right now I'm only thinking about the home run that I left on the bench for Miguel Cabrera that I switched only right before the game started because I saw Jason Hayward leading off, and I was like, oh, it's nice to have 4 leadoff hitters and a couple of number 2 hitters. I can grab some runs here, but Joe, we'll see what happens, man. Obviously, I feel like, although week to week, you and I say, well, this is something that Ben could have done, and it would have been another stat that he won, or another stat that he wouldn't have lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I can look at all that, man, but I think I've played a pretty decent season in the managerial sense, playing careful, playing aggressive at the right time, 21-0 in relief appearances. That's been enormous. I don't know, man, but I just know having that bye, and it would be really, really special for me to just be in the semifinals after this week. When we're talking next week, I'm going to be in such a euphoric place, and I can't even describe what it would be like to win the Fantasy Baseball League for the first time since 2006, when I faced you in the final.
Mm-hmm.
Something makes me feel like if you and I are on different sides of the bracket, if somehow you and I faced in the final, it would just be damn near poetic.
Wouldn't it be to be able to stare down that matchup the week beforehand on this show, or
yeah,
you know?
Yeah, and the way that it ensures it is if I get the 2 spot and you get the 6 spot,
Mm-hmm.
then there's no way that you and I can face each other unless it's in the final.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm hoping for, because I'm really trying to avoid a matchup with you. We've talked in the past over the last 7 years what the stats are, the wins and losses.
Yeah.
Since 2013, you versus me. But yeah, man, I'm grateful to be where I am. I feel like I could look at all these times where I was playing someone. If I did this, if I did that, I could have had another stat. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that I have a 5-game lead going into the final week, and I gotta beat a bad team. I gotta beat a team that I've been better than all season. So hopefully 10 or 11 gets it for me. If you say 8 gets it for me, I'll freaking take that too, man.
Sure.
Anything to just get this number 2 spot would just be so special.
I think the number is 8 for you. Now you're 4 games up in the win column from Jason, and if you were to get 8, that would put you 12 up. So he would have to get 12 wins plus some in order to get there. You would have to take a substantial loss as well, though, because you're 6 games up in the loss column. So that's where the 5 comes from. So it's 9 games.
So do you think something like a 10-8 loss could still be good enough for me to hold on to the 2 spot?
Absolutely, unless Jason goes out and absolutely drubs Ari. It would take something like a 15-5, a 16-4, something like that. For him to jump you. Even if you go 10-10, if you take a 10-8 loss, he's gonna have to take a beating. Like, he's gonna have to beat up on Ari.
What's the worst loss do you think I can sustain? 12-8, I'd still be good?
See, the thing is, if you get 8 wins, you should be fine, because you're that far ahead in the loss column. So taking 12 losses would put you at 92. It would take 6 losses for Jason to tie that, and then you have to do the math on the offensive side. So say you do take a 12-8 loss this week, right? You'd be sitting at 192 for your losses and 241. Then you're asking Jason to go 12-5, right? 13-5 to jump you.
And I don't know, are the ties as far as
ties don't count to your win-loss.
2 more ties than him, is that worse?
No.
Or better for me?
Having more ties actually works out in your favor here, because again, you have 6 fewer losses. That's the big number there, is the 6 fewer losses.
Well, we'll see what happens, man.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I can't say enough how important it is to just be in the semifinals. If I can pull that off, to automatically have a matchup, and to be able to make moves while the other 4 teams are just going head to head. I don't know where you stand on it as far as what we think the first and second place should be allowed to do, because they are kind of interfering with the matchups from 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5. You could argue that the first or second place could totally screw someone over and say, I don't want this guy to advance in the second round. I'm going to pick up all these pitchers so that he can't pitch and get innings.
And he has every right to do so. I would if I'm sitting there and let's say I'm in your spot, right? And I see I see who have I played badly against.
In the playoffs or just in this week to stop someone from getting into the playoffs?
I mean, you could do that too. You have every right to do that because you're in this position. Mike Haber has every right that if he doesn't want me to make the playoffs and he sees what I need to do, he could to dodge me. Yeah, he could do that. I don't
know if Mike is going to dog it because he sees himself as a possible spot to get knocked at. I mean, he's in a better spot than me to stay into that bye. I guess you're saying in the math, it's almost nearly impossible for him to lose a chance at the semifinal. So maybe he does play that way. Maybe he says, you know what, I don't want to see Joe in the playoffs. I can dog it against Jimmy, but I don't think he knows who he wants to face, and I think that's where things work out in the favor of the teams that are in the playoffs, not worrying about what first and second place do in their ads during that bye week, because who knows who you want to face.
Right.
If I'm saying, I don't know if I want to face Jason. I don't know if I want to face Gene. I have no idea who my team matches up with. So I'm just going to make my moves according to build my team for my playoff week, not necessarily to sabotage one of the other teams.
Sure. I mean, get in first, and then worry about how you want to manipulate things.
Right.
And speaking of getting in, Benny, my season was almost over this week.
Yeah.
My matchup with Ari. Yeah. Let's go to my matchup with Ari. I take a 10-9 loss here. I'll take it because holy shit, I don't deserve it. My team played like hot garbage this week. Actually, I take that back. My team played incredibly fucking well. The problem is, so did Ari's. There was a point where I'm like, can I just get a day where Ari doesn't hit like 360 for a day? And, all right, close categories this week. I won by 2 runs, a homer, 2 steals, and a complete game. We'll get to that. Ari wins by an RBI, 2 ticks on the on-base percentage, a home run given up by a pitcher, and 2 ticks on the ERA. We'll get to that. We tied in triples, wins, and saves. Ari also won.
We'll get to that too.
Yeah.
That's big too.
Yeah, and Ari. He won by 9 ticks on the batting average. On Ari's bench this week, he goes 9 for 41. That's a 220 batting average. 4 runs, 4 doubles, 5 RBIs, 3 walks, 12 strikeouts. None of it plays. It doesn't matter that he benched Cole Calhoun on Saturday when he went off and Adam Jones didn't. It doesn't matter. Ari's team hit.
With 4 runs on the bench, he probably had to be perfect, and he probably would have been switching out something else. Right?
Exactly. That's why I'm saying like that really doesn't matter. He would have.
Okay.
Yeah. There was one day on Thursday. Friday. He went 1 for 11 on his bench, but one of those guys. Oh no. So he went 1 for 11 on the bench. Ohtani had a run and Odor had a run. So like he would have to get both of those guys in order to make that happen.
And 1 for 11 means the batting average.
The batting average drops. The on-base percentage drops.
Batting average.
Yeah, exactly. To try to get Cole Calhoun in there. Sure, his batting average and on-base percentage goes up, but who knows what else happens there. His moves were very minimal, although seeing Victor Caratini hit a fucking home run on, what was that, Friday as well, I believe. Yeah. Caratini, no, maybe it was Saturday. Either way.
I think he hit 3 home runs in 2 days.
Yeah, it was disgusting, and I watched that happen. I'm like, really? You've already got all of the Rockies at home all week. I'm up against that. And the rest of his lineup.
That's a pickup.
Yeah.
That's not
the rest of his team is going off all week. And I'm like, Brian Reynolds wore me out. Starlin Castro wore me out. Like, it was just one guy after another that I'm like, can I just get one day where he hits like 160? Just one. I'm not asking for much. Even 200, because my team was hitting. My team was hitting all week. Unfortunately, I had a day where I didn't hit, and it cost me. In any event, Ari had a great week. For me on the bench, it was a 6 for 21. That's a 286 batting average, 5 runs, a double, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. The 2 RBIs hurt, and I know exactly where they're from. Middle of the week, I'm benching Luis Arraez, who, we've talked about in the past. He's a good hitter, and, he hits either first or sixth, depending on whether they're facing a lefty or a righty. Back-to-back days, the 29th and 30th, he gets RBIs. He gets an RBI apiece. Yoan Moncada had an absolutely awful week.
Right.
He struck out 12 times this week and hit 115. If I play Arraez midweek and recognize that Moncada is not hitting, I win that category.
Yeah, batting average is definitely in striking distance enough.
Yeah, batting average is better, on base percentage is better, because Arraez had a decent week. a 1 for 2, a 1 for 4, a 1 for 4, a 2 for 5, you know. It was all there. It was all there for the taking. I just didn't play this kid because Yohan Moncada is having a breakout season. And at any point...
You got to stick to your guy.
Yeah.
You got to stick to your guy there. It's just... and I honestly, man, I don't even like Jason Hayward that much. I feel like because I picked him up in the middle of the season, I don't have that much loyalty to him, man.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that he's the leadoff hitter on the Cubs. Like, that's his role most of the time when he plays.
Yep.
And even when he's bad and I win a week, I peel one off the calendar and I say, Monday, you got to start in utility instead of Miguel Cabrera because you're the leadoff hitter. That's your role, and you have the chance to get me runs. So it's the same thing, man. You have a commitment and a loyalty to a certain guy. You're not just going to pull a midweek. Most guys just stick to the guys. They don't flip-flop. I mean, the guys that do, they end up leaving stuff on their bench because they play by the matchups and they overthink it and overanalyze. I understand what you're saying, man, but I think you did what most people should do.
Right. It's just, when you look back on it, and hindsight's always 20/20. So you look back on it, you say, wow, I probably should have done that. But there's not many people that would be doing that. My moves for this week, whole lot of pitchers, man. I pitched to 95 innings this week, and I was throwing everything against the wall. I picked up an Ariel Jurado relief appearance that was amazing. I picked up a Derek Rodriguez start that was not. I picked up a kid by the name of Tim Melville. Now, Tim Melville pitches for the Rockies, and his first 2 starts, he was lights out. 7 innings of 1 earned run against Arizona, and then the last time out, 5 innings, shutout ball against Atlanta in Colorado, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's something to this kid. Maybe he's hot. Maybe he's, maybe he's the kid that you can ride for a couple more starts. The start is against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's not a great lineup. They're okay. It's in Colorado, but he just proved he can pitch against a really good lineup in Colorado. Yeah, he got blowed up to a 22.5 ERA, and when I lose ERA by 2 ticks, that sucks. In fact, there was a stat correction done, what was it, Sunday morning? Or no, it was, No, man, this
must have been done at about 7 or 8 in the morning.
Yeah, it had to have been this morning because I was sitting with an ERA of 382 or 379, somewhere in there. They tacked another earned run onto...
It was 384, Joe.
384? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, you were up by 2 ticks.
Okay, so they tack on another earned run and another hit to Melville because they obviously gave somebody an error that got taken away, and since they take that error away, they give it to Melville as a hit and an earned run, and it ticks my ERA up 4 ticks and gives Ari that stat. That flips it from a 10-9 win to a 10-9 loss for me. It's heartbreaking, but at the end of the day, I'm the guy who streamed this bum. This guy. I was listening to the broadcast of the game with the Braves on YouTube, and they were talking about how this guy was playing in an international ball earlier this year. So he's a journeyman. He's been in the league he's been in and around baseball for close to 13 years. And the only time he's really started was with the Reds 4 or 5 years ago. He wasn't good then. He's obviously not good now. I just thought I was catching lightning in a bottle, and it failed me. Add in the fact that I added Tucker Barnhart and Josh Reddick on Sunday to try to get some more stats and get my batting average up because they were hot. Those guys went 0 for 8. Thanks. That loses me average and on-base percentage. It was there for the taking, and the decisions I made just didn't work out. It's rough, but that's fantasy baseball, man.
But you also got to turn to the decision to play Jurado, because this guy has now had a very funny relationship with you, Joe, because I started Jurado against you, and it completely changed the week when he started giving up all these home runs, and I had to strategize accordingly, and you end up winning that week, basically because pitching changed because of this. Now you pick up this guy, he lowers your whip enough for you to win that. That was the only swing category you won. You lost average, you lost on base percentage, and like you just said, you lost ERA. So the Jurado pickup, man, makes it so
Yeah.
So, as much as, you know, you can kick yourself for making that Melville pickup, you can be just as proud for making the Gerardo pickup. So, to me, man, this is, like you said, a good loss. You did what you had to do to peel off the schedule, and you're in this position that if you win, you're in. That's it.
Yeah, winning them in.
This week, Joe. You do that.
Yeah, Gerardo I picked up because they were throwing an opener and they were like, Gerardo's going to be the next guy. And I'm like, well, that's a relief appearance. I'll take that. And I'm going to get a bunch of innings out of it. You know, and he's been serviceable. I mean, this is a guy that was traded for Alex Gordon in our league this year. So I'll take it. You know, I'll take the relief appearance. I'll take the 6 innings and the win. Thank you very much. Key players this week. For Ari, it's again Nolan Arenado, 423 average, 448 on base, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. But surprisingly enough, 2 errors from a Gold Glove third baseman. I'm amazed that is the line that he puts up there. Victor Caratini, we talked about his full line, 400 average, 438 on base, 2 runs, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, a walk and a strikeout. And Starlin Castro wore me out as well, 320 average, 346 on base, 3 runs, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, a walk, 7 strikeouts. You don't like that. You know, this doesn't even include Brian Reynolds having a monster week, 412 average and on base, 5 runs, 4 doubles, a homer, and 6 RBIs. I didn't count him because I ended up winning runs and doubles, and those were the major contributions that he made this week. Pitching-wise for Ari, Anthony DeSclafani, 7 innings, a win, 8 strikeouts, a walk, and an 0.43 whip, nothing earned. DeSclafani I talked about way back in April when I was in New York on the Fantasy Best Friends Forever. He was coming back off the injury, and one of those guys was like, this is a guy you can ride all season. I said, no, you can't. You can't ride this guy. He's so injury prone. Well, he's been pretty good for Ari this season. You know, 4.05 ERA, a 1.29 WHIP, 139 strikeouts, and 135 innings. Take it. You know, you found the guy on the waiver wire, and you scooped him up, and you run with him. You know, he's
stuck with it. Yeah, that's the big thing.
Stick with it.
Certainly, there's so many times where you start a guy, he does well for you, you say thanks for the stats, but I need the roster spot for something else, and he ends up on another team. He ends up on another team. He ends up on another team. But then there's just some guys like a Lucas Giolito we talked about with Chris Levy last week.
Yep.
You grab a guy and he sticks to your team, and it just ends up being a game changer for Ari. You know, possibly spoiler.
Walker Buehler, Ari's ace, was great as well. 6 innings, a win, 2 walks, 11 strikeouts, a 1 whip. And John Gant is a guy I'm going to highlight here. 2 relief appearances, 3 1/3, 2 wins, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. The 2 wins are huge because we tied in that category. And getting 2 wins from a reliever when all he came in for was those 2 relief appearances and they turn into 2 wins, fuck you, John Gant. How does that happen? Annoying.
No, it's just the way it goes, and I'm sorry to interrupt you,
but
it's just I'm glad that you have this platform, man, because it gives me an opportunity to say something that, you know, me and Ari get some text conversations about the league sometimes, but he knows where he's in this position in the league. He knows it's over, but he made moves, man. He adjusted his team every single day, and going into Monday, he's even further out of a playoff spot, and it's over. But hey, he made sure that he got Jay Bruce in his lineup. John Gant was sitting his bench. He adjusted that to the rotation, and he's competing because he wants to compete. And I just, you know, as a brother, as a friend, and as the commissioner of this league, I appreciate a guy that has like 3 jobs, a family and kids, has a lot of crap to do, and he'll still adjust his team every day. He'll still make the pickups. He'll still plan a spoil even though the season is over. So I have so much gratitude, appreciation. I can't say enough about my brother because just an unbelievable manager, an unbelievable competitor, and it means a lot how much that he enjoys the league, how much he appreciates what the integrity of the league is. So I just wanted to make a statement there because I wanted the opportunity to say something.
Yeah, this was one of the hardest matchups of my season, was facing Ari, knowing my season's on the line. And look, this guy had me beat. You know, coming into Friday, I was down 13-5. I have absolutely...
No, he had a lead on you all week.
All week. He was kicking my ass. And every week I'm updating and looking at the projected standings. And I'm sitting in 7th. And it's not close. Like, I'm getting kicked out of the playoffs if this stays the way it was. Let's go to my key players and we can find
I think my season is over, but maybe I don't deserve it.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that in the middle of the week, and I said, look, you got half your at-bats out of all your at-bats. We got to see what the second half of the week brings.
Yep.
And that's always the weeks, man. If you have, typically we all have about 230 at-bats.
Yeah.
That's usually the number we sit around. Some a little less if they play short liners, some a little more if we keep on making ads to fill a lineup. But it's generally that. So if you're at like 115 at-bats, you really have to say we're halfway gone and we got halfway to go. And that's all it meant, man. So that's why I said to you, like, we'll see what happens in a few more days, man, because you really just, you have to let the rest of the stats accumulate. You end up winning runs by 2, and that ends up being a big thing because it just looked throughout the week like that was one of the stats, the offensive stats that you weren't going to win, that you ended up winning.
Yeah. I mean, there were a ton that got flipped late. Let's go to my key players and we can take a look at some of this. Mitch Garver is a guy that bounced around the league so long this season, and now he has found a home here on Feast or Famine since the end of June. This week, 455 average, 571 on base, 5 runs, 3 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. I win the homers by 1. Mitch Garver is certainly a reason why, because he goes out on, what day was that? He hit 2 homers. It was Saturday. He goes out 2 for 3, 3 runs, 2 homers, 2 walks. Thank you very much, Mr. Garver. I appreciate your contribution. You know, he doesn't play every day, and we know that because he's a catcher. But man, and when he's got 26 homers this year.
Right.
He's absolutely had a breakout season. Juan Soto has been a lifesaver for me. 474 average, 500 on base, 6 runs, 5 doubles, a triple, 2 homers, 9 RBIs, a walk and 4 strikeouts. You know, he hit the only triple on my team. We tied in that category. The 2 homers plays, the doubles and the runs are huge. And Tommy Pham, what's that?
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
I was just agreeing with
Absolutely. Tommy Pham, 375 average, 444 on base, 4 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. The steal is big. You know, I got steals from Baez, Pham, and Lindor. That wins me that category. Tommy Pham has been awesome for me. 20 homers, 17 steals. I pegged him as a 2020 guy coming into the season. He's been exactly that, and I'm loving it. Pitching-wise, let's talk about Ariel Jurado real quick, and then we'll get to the 2 that really changed everything. Ariel Jurado, the 6-inning relief appearance that I talked about, the win, a walk, a strikeout, and 050 whip. The other 2, let's talk about Justin Verlander for a second. His first start of the week was against Tampa. He went 5 1/3 with a win and 4 strikeouts. And I was kind of disappointed in that start. A, he got ejected from that start. B, he did not throw 10 strikeouts because that was something he was doing literally every start since July the 19th. That's 7 in a row of 10 or more strikeouts. Okay, fine. But he gave me a win. All right. I'm disappointed, but let's see what happens in his second start. On Sunday, in Toronto, he throws a fucking no-hitter, Benji. Complete game, shutout, 1 walk, 14 strikeouts. I get the complete game. It ties up wins. It lowers my ERA and whip substantially. He threw an 0-11 whip. Amazing.
I don't know what to say, man.
It's a season saver.
Day that I was kind of separated from baseball. I had a lot going on, but you know, I texted my group text of Jason and Andy, and I said I have no idea what happened in baseball, and Jason just texted Justin Verlander happened.
Yeah.
And that was the story, man. And so funny and appropriate. The week after we have a 53-minute discussion about complete games and quality starts, and here's an example.
Here's an example of a real complete game. Like, this is exactly what complete games should be.
Yeah, it's the pulling the lever and getting 3 cherries It's
Yes.
not anything that you're just thinking that's going to happen, but you never know, you
Yeah.
know, and when you trade for Verlander or when you draft Verlander, you know, there is that chance that he goes 9 innings.
Mhm.
He's just one of those guys that gets stronger as the game goes sometimes throughout the season.
Yeah.
So that's where the complete games that say, you know what, if I have this guy all season, he could get me that stat 1 or 2 times. Really interesting though that we can actually like bring the conversation back now, because now you're sitting in that chair thinking like, if I make the playoffs by 1,
There it is.
we go back and we look at this complete game, and it changes the story whether we didn't have complete games or whether we do have complete games.
Mhm.
And yes, those rating short things happen. It just makes that discussion a little bit more fun for the two of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do not come off of my soapbox of being that complete games is not as valuable as quality starts, because, by the way,
All right, so
this,
it's consistent. It doesn't change.
it doesn't change my argument. But if we're going to continue to keep complete games, these are I mean, look, a no-hitter's a no-hitter, right? Like, we're not expecting no-hitters every time. But a complete game needs to be, at minimum, 8 innings. Because you can get a complete game and a loss in 8 innings.
Yeah.
So
a complete game loss does happen.
It does. Verlander threw one last week. He's gotten me 2 complete games in 2 consecutive weeks.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, incredible. What else can you ask from this guy when you traded for him? It's just astonishing, man. You took such a risk when you trade away Trevor Bauer, who's having a good season. He's a younger player. Still, at the time he was on the Indians, we didn't think he was going to necessarily get traded.
No.
Jorge Polanco, that was practically the batting champion. You go 2 for 1 on a 36-year-old on a very good team, and he's
No. That was a 2 for 2.
But
That was a 2 for 2. I got Jose Leclerc out of that.
Humongous risk.
Yeah.
You took a huge risk that day when you made that trade.
Mhm.
And I remember Andy saying, like, what would you do? And listen, I can't make the move for you, man, but like a 2 for 1 for the guys that you're getting, he's not offering you a bad deal. It's just, you know, Joe, you never want to hand the bad guy in the league. No, but you're a great guy. I love you, man. But I'd say when you're the 2-time ring defending and no one else has 3 championships except for you, I don't know if you're holding 3 fingers right now. I'm assuming you're holding up 3 fingers right now. But I'll just say that when you make a trade with that guy and you say, I'm giving him Verlander, and you don't know what the repercussions are going to be, it ends up being what it is, man. And I can't say that they did anything wrong. You just made a hell of a move, and it was a humongous risk, so I give you a ton of credit for it.
Well, I thank you for that. And yes, I was holding up 3 fingers. And Verlander, you know, he's a guy that I targeted, and I wanted Bauer to be that this season, and I just didn't see it. And if you look at where Bauer has gone since that trade, A, going to Cincinnati, and B, just becoming an absolute head case, and you never know what you're going to get out of the guy. I'm very, very fortunate that I was able to make this deal. And Polanco has fallen off as well. Not that he's been terrible since the trade, but he's no longer hitting 340. You know, he's only hitting 295 now. So, you know, I like that I was able to clean up my infield, get an ace pitcher, and this is what I've got. And don't forget, Jose Leclerc was part of that deal too, and I got a save out of him this week.
Right.
Tied that category.
You're absolutely, that guy was humongous because you tied me in saves because of Leclerc.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just another stat that you end up losing against me.
Mm-hmm.
You ended up beating me 10-9, so that ends up being, what, 9-9 or 10-10, whatever it is. So, look, can't say enough about the trades that you made this year.
Yeah. And as long as we're on the topic of saves, let's have a talk about Pedro Baez, who gave me 3 relief appearances, 3 innings, 5 strikeouts, nothing earned, an .033 whip. But the interesting thing is that game with Arizona last night goes 11 innings. And who happens to come into the game in the bottom of the 11th after the Dodgers get a Jock Peterson homer to put them up by 1, but Pedro Baez. And he closes out the game.
God. And don't forget that Bellinger had to have a game-tying home run in the 9th inning with 1 out just to get you to the extra inning.
Exactly. So Bellinger ties it in the ninth with a homer. Peterson puts them ahead in the ninth, and Baez.
In the 11th.
Yeah, in the 11th, and Baez comes in to shut it down. They already used Kenley Jansen. When they used Kenley in the ninth, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used him in the ninth. So here he is coming in the 11th, and he gets me a save. This guy just earned himself a roster spot for at least a couple of weeks on my team. Because you never know what can happen. Kenley Jansen could blow a couple of saves, and they just use Baez to give him a day off. Hell, they're 25 games up in the West. There's no reason to use Kenley Jansen in a close game anymore.
No, they'll rest him. They'll give him his regular rest because they got to keep him loose and they got to keep him ready. So he'll still come into those ninth inning and get the save situation. But yeah, I do believe that there are sometimes when they have a 3-run lead instead of a 2 or a 1-run lead, and they'll go to somebody else. Exactly.
With that, I'm facing off against Mike Sherman, and I knew this was going to be the final week that I would have to win and get in. I'm a game up on 6th place and a game and a half up on 7th. It's so incredibly razor thin this week. I need to get a win, and I need it to be a fairly decent win to hopefully, stave off if, say, Chris Levy goes off and beats up on Nick this week. There's no guarantee that I win and I'm in. It's win and those guys don't win as big. So, the last 5 weeks for me, 10-9, 10-9, 11-9, 11-8, 9-10. I am playing right at 500 ball. I need to get a good win here. I need to make a statement.
And it's just as razor thin as you can get. You don't necessarily control your own destiny. Interesting, a guy that you basically had the number of, Ari beat you twice this year.
Mm-hmm.
And you followed up after that first loss against Ari when you faced Mike Sherman. Sherman got you as well. So if Sherman is able to do again what he did to the first time you guys faced each other this year, this might be the end of the story for you, Joe. And I gotta say, there's something to be said of you not making the playoffs. It's fun for like these other weeks, but it's also interesting to see if you can go for this 3 in a row thing for all time. There's an excitement and a story to tell there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So either way this thing shapes up, I think it's just going to be a very interesting thing that we'll get to talk about. But you have no easy task. Maybe arguably one of the toughest tasks, because Mike Sherman, we have to look at it years to years, but Mike Sherman generally goes over 500 for the season. Right now, I think he's 2 under 500. So most of the time, Mike does not end under 500. I think last year is an exception. But in general, such a tough manager. So I think Chris Levy has a little bit more of a beneficial matchup against Nick. Jimmy has no layup against Mike Haber, but like you said, maybe he dogs it a little bit. And then finally, when we get to Bobby, there is that prayer from him as well, but it's in the math for even Bobby to finish at the end of the week with a higher record than you. So
he could.
You got your work ahead of you, but just gotta hope. I don't know what you think, because like the Mets are still in it too, man. But like Alonso, McNeil, Ramos, these are all guys on Mike Sherman's team. Your head is probably spinning right now.
I want the Mets to do well, but I don't want Alonso and McNeil to do well. I need Wilson Ramos to well, he's not playing today, so that's a plus. I'm gonna miss him one day. Alonso's 0 for 2 so far, McNeil's 0 for 2 so far, and the Mets are up 2-0. Let's make this the outline of how every Mets game should go this week. I would love that. With that, we're gonna
count on it though.
I can't.
Maybe a bad week out of 1 or 2, but I gotta think that they're gonna beat you somehow at some point during the week.
Yeah, we'll get to Mike's team when we get to his matchup. There's some guys on his team that I'm actually more scared of than those 2 guys. But with that, we'll jump to another matchup. We'll be back right after this. Another guest coming up. All right, guys, we're back, and we are going to jump to the number 1 team in the league, Mike Haber, taking on Korean barbecue Frank Bucco. And joining us for this matchup, Francis Bartholomew Bucco. How are you, Frank?
Doing well, sir. And Benjamin, hello to you as well.
Just great. Listen, hey, Frank, thanks for taking the time to show up. Listen, tough week again for you, but I feel like this was a lot of hard work and a very impressive battle against arguably the best manager in our sport, Vic. So well played, and just looking forward to hearing some of your thoughts and your intake.
Yeah, last week, Frank, I had Mike Haber on for the first half, and I said to him, this is a trap game for you, man. I'm gonna pick Frank to beat you this week, and it was pretty damn close. Like, it was pretty impressive how close you kept it. It was an 11-9 loss for you. Mike won by a stolen base, a win, and a save. You won by 2 triples, 2 walks, and a third of an inning pitched. You guys tied in doubles. For Mike on his bench, he went 10 for 30. It's a 333 average, 5 runs, 4 doubles, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 2 walks, and 9 strikeouts. The doubles are the really difficult thing to look at. He had one on Friday, one on Saturday, and one on Sunday, all on his bench. The one that I will point to is Seth Brown, who I don't even know who he plays for, but he picked him up on the 29th, benched him on the 30th. Yeah, benched him on the 30th. He went 3 for 3 with a run, a double, and 3 RBIs on his bench, while Jock Peterson went 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts at first base. That is an absolutely crippling bench. He plays him there, he wins doubles, and we're talking a 12-9 win there. His adds and drops this week, nothing to write home about. He did grab Oscar Mercado, who came off of my team, but didn't do anything for him. The disappointing thing for him especially is the fact that he loses to you by a third of an inning. Who knows where that could have been found. I don't think he benched any relief appearances, but to see, so many pitchers going, and you guys pitched to 57 innings apiece, to see just that third of an inning be the difference in that stat must be heartbreaking for him. Moving over to your team, 11 for 30 on the bench. That's a 367 batting average, 5 runs, 4 doubles, a homer, 8 RBIs, and 4 walks. The doubles again rear their ugly head here. We're looking at Austin Meadows on Sunday, 3 for 5, a run, 2 doubles, and an RBI on the bench, while Soler and Nick Castellanos go a combined 0 for 8. You add that with a bench Joe Musgrove and a bench Jordan Lyles start. Both of those guys get wins, and that would have tied that category for you. That's a difficult moment there. But I do want to give credit where it's due. Starting on Monday, your ads were really, really savvy. Francisco Cervelli and Josh Van Meter you pick up on Monday. Both of them get you triples, and they're the only triples in the category. So it was a huge ad on that day. Looks like you added that Salamander guy I like to pick on. And
Santander.
Yeah, that Salamander guy. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And then you add in...
We've been calling him Salamander guy since a month ago.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, he had a big week for, I think it was either Chris Levy or Jimmy Dunlap or somebody. And I was like, who is this Salamander guy? And Benny,
I guess he went cold.
Yeah. He went cold. He got dropped. And now he's found a home on your team for now.
Oh no, he has.
Yeah.
Found a home on my team.
Yeah. Tell me about the benching of Joe Musgrove on Saturday, because that could have really lost you the innings. It certainly didn't get you the win that you needed there. Tell me about his start.
Well, I mean, the logic behind it was he's pitching in Colorado.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, really, honestly, he's pitching in Colorado. He's up and down with his starts. Mm-hmm. He has a good start, he has a bad start, he has a good start, he has a bad start. His last start wasn't terrible, so I assumed this was going to be his blow-up start. Mm-hmm. And add in the fact that he's playing in Colorado, which is the best hitters ballpark in the game, I would say. Mm-hmm. And the Pirates offense who's been okay. They've been pretty good, I guess, but they're not, great, but,
at home, they're fantastic,
it was a move I made based on the logistics.
Yeah, it's a case of you don't want to start a guy in a bad start, but at the same time, you started Martin Perez, who gave you 2 2/3 and a ton of runs, and that was in Detroit. So at the end of the day, that's baseball, right? You have what you thought was a great matchup there with Martin Perez in Detroit, and he gets blown up. And Musgrove in Colorado gives you a decent start. In fact, I would even call it a quality start, Benjamin. The week was...
Oh, fantastic.
At the end of the day, I mean, tell me also about this Francisco Cervelli and Josh Van Meter pickup. That was a category deciding pair of pickups there.
So, I mean, I didn't have a catcher, and I didn't have a first baseman on Monday. And I've seen this Van Meter guy, put up stolen bases. He hits at the top of the lineup. He gets on base at a fairly regular clip. So I was like, well, I said, I'll take a flyer on him. I'm only using one move for him, and, he fills a hole. He fills a hole that I needed on that day.
Yeah.
And, he goes out there, and I think he only went 1 for 5, but the one hit was a triple.
Yeah.
So, and he scored a run or two.
He scored 2 runs.
And I was like, okay, it's solid. And that was really it. I mean, Cincinnati's offense has been pretty solid as of late. They're scoring a lot of runs. So I assumed, hey, guy hit at the top of the lineup on a semi-solid team. We'll take him.
Sure.
And with Cervelli, I mean, since he's come to the Braves, at the time he was 3 for 6. As it was since coming to the Braves, since they signed him. So I didn't have a catcher, and he was available, and I said, well, I mean, it's kind of a homer pick, but I mean, he was there, and he seemed like the logical option, and obviously it worked out. He had a double and a triple in that game.
Yeah, and the game was in
Colorado game on Monday.
Yeah, the game was in Colorado, so I can understand playing that matchup. I can understand playing him in that ballpark, filling that hole like you like to talk about. It was a really savvy move. The rest of the week played out how it did.
Right.
You kept it competitive. I was certainly rooting for you. Mike Haber can attest to the fact that last week I'm saying this is a trap game, Mike. You're walking into an ambush here, and he almost did. That being said, let's go to key players, and then we'll jump to what needs to happen going forward. For Mike this week, we have him lined up with Eugenio Suarez as his key player. Suarez was
that guy.
he was a monster this week. 367 average, 441 on base, 8 runs, 2 doubles, 5 homers, 8 RBIs, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts. Add in Justin Turner, who went 333 with a 345 on base, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, a walk, 5 strikeouts, and an error. And finally, Yordan Alvarez, the rookie sensation that he picked up, 273 average, 407 on base, 8 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 5 walks, 10 strikeouts. His offense came to play, just absolutely outslugged you. He hit 290 with a 364, 17 homers. At the end of the day, his team came to play. The steals were huge, too. Those came from Mookie Betts and Brian Goodwin. It comes down to his team just outslugged you, and you were just trying to keep pace where you could. Walks, triples, and, you kept your strikeouts down. Pitching-wise for Mike, gave Madison Bumgarner a good start. 7 innings, a win, 9 strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA, an 0.86 WHIP. Only 2 walks and a solo homer to his record there. Emilio Pagan gives him 2 relief appearances and 2 saves. Did give up a homer, but got 4 strikeouts in 3 innings. He did win saves through that category and through Emilio Pagan alone. Finally, I'm going to hit John Means, the Baltimore pitcher. 7 innings, a homer, 4 strikeouts, 2.57 ERA, 0.71 WHIP. The start was in Kansas City. There was a really great matchup for him. And he ends up winning wins, saves, keeps his homers and walks down. But a lot of his counting stats, his peripherals, the ERA, the WHIP, those didn't come with what he was pitching. You guys pitched to literally almost the identical number of innings, but you beat him out by almost 20 strikeouts. It's cases like Yusei Kikuchi giving him 5 innings and only 1 strikeout. John Means, 7 innings and only 4 strikeouts. Mike Soroka, 6 innings, only 1 strikeout. That's not the type of start you want to see from your guys. You want at least a strikeout an inning, and this is just not the week that he gets that. And you get the benefit of that. On your offense, we're gonna hit Francisco Cervelli, we talked about him. You know, he gave you a double and a triple. The triple is the big thing. He went 500 on your team with a 600 on base, only the walk. But again, the triple is huge. And, you know, when you win walks by 2, he gave you one of those. So it's a huge buffer right there. We will hit the Salamander Fool. He hit 417 average and on base for you. 3 runs, a double, 3 homers, 7 RBIs. No walks, but only 4 strikeouts. So again, another nice pickup for you. Playing center field, probably going to rotate in with, I would imagine, Austin Meadows in your center field spot going forward. Finally, we'll hit Ozzy.
I'm not sure I'm going to play that.
Okay, I mean, you know, play it day by day. For Ozzy Albies.
It's nice that he has all 3. You know, you
Yeah.
can left, center, or right.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
flexibility, you could just basically decide who your 3 outfielders are and not have any kind of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, Ozzy Albies was the final guy to give you a great week. 364 average, 500 on base, 4 runs, 4 doubles are huge, 2 RBIs, 6 walks, 5 strikeouts. The doubles are enormous when you get 4 out of one guy and you end up tying it at 14. You know, that's a huge pickup for you. You know, you didn't get any of the guys that you ended up dropping before this week is out. Van Meter, Lugo, or Iglesias. None of them gave you doubles. All of your doubles came from the guys that were on your team, you know, for the majority of the week.
The whole week.
Yeah, with the exception of Cervelli's double. Pitching wise for you.
He's back on my team today.
Oh, nice.
I wanted to ask, because it seemed like Austin Meadows just had a really, really tough week for you, Frank.
Yeah.
He went 3 for 17 to the tune of a 176 batting average, 222. Only the 3 runs and a 1 double. The home run was one of the 3 hits. So he goes 0 for 5 on Saturday. And I can see, like, sometimes I'm tempted to a guy like law of averages say if he's 0 for 5 on Saturday, then like maybe on Sunday he can finally come through and do something. Was there ever a temptation? Because like, obviously that ends up moving largely because he has 2 doubles on your bench on Sunday. That would have won the category. Was there ever a temptation to play Austin Meadows on Sunday? Was that ever part of your thought process, or were you just pretty sure this guy is cold, he deserves the bench?
Well, it was, but it wasn't. The thought process behind that was Salamander was as hot as he was. He hit 2 home runs the night before against the Royals, so I was obviously keeping him in because, again, as Joe put it earlier, he hit 417 this week.
Right. And the walks were pretty close, and I guess, like, if anything, maybe they don't pitch to him, and maybe if they don't pitch to him, you grab another couple walks to ensure that one.
Sure, and with Meadows, I mean, it really came down to a fact of Meadows is hitting against a Cleveland pitching staff that's not bad, and he went 0 for 5 against Plesac, who doesn't necessarily throw that hard. He throws a lot of changeups. So, and then he's facing Pluko on Sunday, and Pluko's been fairly good. I mean, I haven't looked at the stats, but he's been fairly good. And, you know, the Indians are in a position where they need to win. So, you know, Francona's going to do whatever he's got to try to win, and these guys are going to try to do whatever they got to try to win. And they're facing an opener in Castillo, who in that game, you know, only pitched an inning, but I mean, I think he gave up a run or 2 in that game.
You're looking at the wrong game. That Sunday game was Charlie Morton's start.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I was all right. So it was Charlie Morton's start. So
I mean, when you look at it,
I was really at that point chasing. I was really at that point trying to chase like RBIs and home runs. So that was another reason why I kept him out and favored Soler. So, I mean, that was really the thought process behind it. It was more of a, do I play Soler, go for the home runs, or do I play Meadows and he goes 0 for 5 and doesn't help me?
Right.
So, I mean, that was really the thought process behind it. And the thing that pissed me off about that this week, especially Sunday, was Travis d'Arnaud didn't play. Didn't start. So I put in Christian Vasquez because he was slated to start.
Mm-hmm.
And then d'Arnaud comes in the game and hits a double.
And drives in 2 RBIs.
Yeah. Now, had I not had the catcher problem, I would have just left him in.
Sure.
So,
but Christian Vasquez has been good for you, man. You've ridden that guy as long as you.
Vasquez has been good for me, but he's no longer holds a spot on my team.
Right. He's 0 for his last 13. It's kind of ugly there, and he's also
it's kind of time to go.
3 for his last 21. So 3 for his last 25. Like he's in
that lineup. In that lineup, you have to hit the ball.
Yeah.
If you're not hitting the ball, you gotta go.
Yeah.
So that was the thought process behind it. I mean,
Okay.
it was literally just an iffy play, and I made the wrong decision, and just like with that's it.
Yep.
I mean, there's really nothing else behind it.
Well, let's jump to your key pitchers this week. We'll highlight Kyle Ryan, who's been really good for you this year. 3 relief appearances, a win, 4 strikeouts. When you guys you almost caught him in wins, but the important thing here is that he kept your ERA down, he kept your WHIP down, and he won you relief appearances. Andrew Heaney has been a massive pickup for you. 11 innings this week. He does take a loss, but 14 strikeouts, a 3.27 ERA, a 1.45 WHIP. He helps you win the strikeout category. Unfortunately, does help lose you the walks category with his 5 walks and 2 homers. You lost homers by 3, you lost walks by 4. So those 2 really kind of hurt. But also Marcus Stroman, 12 innings, a loss, 3 home runs, 4 walks, 13 strikeouts. I highlight those 2 guys, though, specifically because they win you the innings category and they help win you the strikeouts category while keeping your ERA and WHIP low enough to win those 2 as well. So yes, they cost you homers and walks, but they won you innings, strikeouts, ERA, and WHIP. They've been invaluable to you.
Yeah, no, and the thing with them was, yesterday was kind of like a chess game for me because I saw that Haber picked up Kikuchi, and then he picked up whatever guy from the Dodgers, I forget his name.
Ross Stripling.
Stripling?
Yeah.
Stripling, yeah, there you go. And he picked up Stripling, and Stripling only winds up going 3 innings.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought he was going to at least go 5, but I mean, he had just come off of an injury, and they hadn't stretched him out enough yet.
Right.
So he only goes 3 innings.
Hitting the head in that game, I think, right?
Did he? I didn't watch the game. But anyway, so he comes out after 3. Kikuchi pitches 6. And my thought process was, because the Kikuchi start was at 3 o'clock, and the Heaney start was at 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, well, if Kikuchi pitches well and he's in line for the win, I have to pitch Heaney and I have to start Stroman because there's no other options on the waiver wire that are even enticing.
Right.
So I have to pitch those guys. So Kikuchi goes through and he's winning like 6-3 in the 5th inning, and I'm like, all right, well, I gotta, I have to throw Andrew Heaney, who again has been really good, but Boston got to him for 4 runs.
Sure.
And I was tied in the walks category. I was tied. I was down by 1 in the walks category, winning it. Whatever.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if you don't throw Andrew Heaney or you don't throw Marcus Stroman, you don't win innings, man. Like, it came down to that last out.
That was the idea. Like I was gonna play it a little differently had Kikuchi had a bad start and got the loss. And I was gonna hope for Stroman to get the win, which he would have had the Mets bullpen not got destroyed. Thank you very much, Met fans.
You're welcome.
So
Yep.
yeah, I mean that was really the thought process, but the whole week I was just trying to play catch up because my offense just didn't come to play. They didn't really light up until Friday. And at that point,
Go ahead. Sorry.
no, Friday it was like Friday was like, I came back. Like, I woke up and I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, it's like, I think it was like 10 or 11-10 or something like that. It was like really close, where I thought the categories that I was chasing were out of reach. But my team, I think on Friday, hit like 5 home runs, 6 home runs, something like that.
You hit 4 on Friday and drove in 10.
You made a little comeback with your offense because, I mean, I know right at the beginning you were batting something like 230, 240. Your offense has had a really tough time with it the last few weeks. But I will say, Frank, I don't know, do you remember offhand how many moves you had left going into I mean, did you use all?
I didn't use all my moves yesterday, no, because I was...
This must have been one of the very few that you have. So where's the thought? I mean, things have changed for you as far as, like, your need to, like, grab a guy here, grab a guy there. Is there something that restricted you this week?
From using my moves?
Yeah, just in general, because it just seems like you use them because you have them to use, but, like, that didn't happen this week. So.
Yeah. Right, and it didn't happen this week because I was trying to match Mike step for step in the moves category.
Okay.
Like, if he made a move, I was making a move. If he didn't make a move, I wasn't going to make a move because he's not doing anything to bolster his team. But then I had to reevaluate, and like was it Sunday? I picked up Rowan Wick from the Cubs,
right?
Who were throwing Tyler Chatwood, which I knew Joe Madden was going to have a bullpen game. So, and those guys are used on a regular basis: Kyle Ryan, David Phelps, and Rowan Wick, who all 3 of them were used on Sunday.
All 3 of them got you an inning, and here we are talking again about guys that got into the game that gave you just enough innings to win that category.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, I tip my cap so much, man, the way you manage your pitching. Because you talk about the Musgroveness, whatever. Like, most of us are not starting him in Colorado. But even with that, still winning innings pitched by a third of an inning is extremely impressive, Frank.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. No, of course, it's just a testament. I think you've really, really improved as a manager. And as we go forward into the final week, you really have a chance to change the story here as you face James McCloskey. You could pop him out of the playoffs. You can move him from a 4 spot to a 6 spot. And he has to face a better manager. So where you at as far as what you can do, how you feeling going into this final matchup?
Well, I mean, as of right now, I'm feeling really good. As the games are progressing this afternoon, the offense has actually come to play. In terms of like pitching, I did pick up midweek. I did pick up Trevor Richards because he has a 2-start week.
Okay.
And he's been fairly good since he came over to Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked him up. He's got a 2-start week, according to advice. I feel good about what I have. James has a good team, and it's a very scary offense that can go off at any time. But I feel like, my guys, I think I'm hoping I can pull this one out. And, and maybe spoil it a little bit for him.
Well, we've been waiting all season to see you spoil somebody's season, and this is your last opportunity. But man, is it an important one? James sits 9.5 back at first, but he's right above all of the mess at 5, 6, 7, and 8. He's right there. He's certainly a candidate to get spoiled here. And I know he was not looking forward to this matchup with you because we've been saying for a while, like, your team is coming and you're due a win. If this is the week, it could be really, really catastrophic for James's season. Especially considering this is the guy that you made a pretty important trade with to get to give him Jose Ramirez that has now, backfired for him, seeing him go down for the rest of the season. It'll be interesting to see what you and James do in this chess match. But
I'm going to try to keep the moves to a minimum, and kind of hopefully I can do some stuff here and maybe get a big win. That would be nice, and hopefully I can hopefully I can climb into that 12 spot. That's what I'm looking for. I'm out of last place now, so.
Yeah, that's gonna take a bit. It's gonna take a lot of help for you to get to 12. But staying out of last place is gonna be your goal
As
here.
long as I finish, I mean, if I don't get into the consolation, if I finish above last place, it's a win for me. And if I can spoil this guy's season, that'd be even better.
Yep. And you know what? You can.
The big win, man, is that is everything you've learned up until the final week. Where you were just a baby in week 1. Just trying to trade with everyone, make a move here, change the team, change the idea, the concept, the plan, what you're going for, the overall goal of your team. I think you've gone from a baby to a big boy in 22 weeks. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, and too, like I really kind of adopted what I learned. Because I learned a lot, and I've learned a ton, I should say. And going into like fantasy with football now, not to touch on that too much, but my draft style is different, and just looking at like how I'm looking at players, just on a general scale. Just how I'm looking at players and what matchups do this and that. I think my draft style is a lot better, and I think it's going to help me later on, like next year. So that's really good. And I got some good dialogue from Mike Haber today. He actually he messaged me earlier and said, what a great matchup we had, and we talked a little bit. It was really nice. Like, it was really nice to know that he shared some nice sentiments with me, so it was really cool.
Class act from the top team. With that, Frank. Oh, you got something, Benny?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. With that, Frank, we're gonna bid you adieu. We're gonna jump off over to another matchup here. But I appreciate you coming on, man.
Frank, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking
Absolutely, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. We'll be back right after this.